Welcome and well met, all adventurers. Thank you for joining me here today as we look into another video, and I decided to do something a little bit more fun and take a break from my usual prediction or discussion videos for now. As I'm sure that you've noticed from the title, we're going to be discussing the future jobs for future expansions. Jobs have always been one of the key functions of Final Fantasy XIV, and as of right now we have so many jobs that it can be pretty hard to keep track of them all. In fact, we've got so many jobs, it really wouldn't surprise me that if they decide to just have one new job per expansion from here on out. As of right now, we have 20 jobs in terms of war and magic, including the Blue Mage for the limited job, so adding more could become kind of messy from here on out, especially with how big the expansions have gotten these days. I suppose they could always do what they did with the Rogue/Ninja or with the Blue Mage and add them in mid-expansion, which could definitely work. When Heavensward first came out, we were gifted with 3 new jobs, one for each role. However, with as many problems as the 3 jobs caused the dev team during development, they stated that they will never do 3 jobs at once ever again, which is fair. Since then, we've only had 2 jobs released with every expansion, such as how we got the Red Mage and the Samurai for Stormblood, Gunbreaker and Dancer for Shadowbringers, and the most recent jobs of Sage and Reaper for Endwalker. But with so many jobs now, trying to predict what new possible jobs we could be getting is really difficult, especially since Yoshi P did state that they may have to start developing new original jobs, and we've already seen snippets of that already when they gave us the Sage with the Nora lifts, and took a classic Dancer from a healer to a DPS role instead. So today we're going to be discussing possible future jobs, their weapons, and the kind of mechanics that they might be able to have if the dev team decides to add them. So everything that's listed here has already been requested at some point for Final Fantasy XIV. These are really just the classic jobs from previous Final Fantasy games. They're not in any order save for how popular they are. As of right now, we are pretty well rounded with both the tanks and healers, having 4 for each, so I don't think we need to really focus too much on them for right now. However, I do know that we have 5 jobs for the melee role, and I think we're good to go on that front, but we also have only 3 jobs for ranged DPS and magical DPS, so I think that they are the most likely candidates for the next future job roles. I mean, unless you add for Blue Mage, but that's a limited job, so I'm not sure if that should count for magical. So I do think that in the next expansion, we will still be getting 2 jobs, but it might be more reasonable to assume there'd be for magical and ranged DPS, just to help even everything out. Also, in my opinion, I think that we could be using another scouting job, since all we have for that one right now is for Ninja. So I think that would be a nice addition to have at least one more for the scouting gear, and it would also help reduce the workload on equipments and with each patch anyway. Also, I did want to mention that there are 2 jobs that I do not think that we will be getting anytime soon, even though they're both in kind of popular demand. The first one is the Necromancer, and that's perhaps one of the darkest, if not the darkest jobs out there. This has been brought up several times already with Yoshi P, and he's even come out and stated that they thought about it, but there's really little to no chance of it coming to 14. I mean, I can get how people would be uncomfortable with such a job that interacts with the dead, but they could adapt this to a kind of job that goes maybe more of a spiritualistic vibe, but maybe have more darkness-based spells. I do think it would be challenging to have them raise the dead though, and I think that we have it close enough when it comes to the Reaper job that we really don't need a Necromancer, though it would be cool. And I've also seen a lot of requests for the Songstress job, and while I do enjoy the Songstress from 10-2, I really don't think that we will be having that, since we technically have the Bard job, which includes singing and playing music. But if Square Enix wants to prove me wrong, they are welcome to do so. Alright, so moving on, let's start off with our first classic pick, which is the Puppet Master. So Puppet Master is a job that's been around since some of the earlier games, and it was really made popular in Final Fantasy XI. This is a classical, more of a DPS role where they have dolls or puppets, or maybe in this case we could have mammoths do battle for us. Either they have the puppets attack their enemies or use some kind of magic to do elemental damage instead. Puppet Master is also a job that has been asked about for a really long time, especially after seeing traces of such jobs like with the Calabrina dolls in the Anti-Tower or the Google Library. We even got a classic call-out of the Puppet Master from Eureka Animos, where we have a fate that states, "A wicked puppet master's abrupt disappearance from this plane has left his inscient servant free to wreak whatever havoc its mechanical mind can muster." So that alone is proof that the Puppet Master is out there. So whether or not it's actually made into a job could be interesting. Now, mammoths are something that we've seen all over Eorzea, especially when we see them in like Udal or in Sharlayan. So I think that we could have the unlocking of this job take place maybe in Udal, if they want to have the jobs be unlocked in the 3 starting city-states. I think it would be really interesting if we can learn more about these dolls and how they're animated maybe from a Sharlayan native, or at least a Sharlayan background who could be our teacher, like how they had with Sage. For this job, I think it would be best suited as a DPS role, perhaps even used as the new range DPS, and we could send the puppets into battle for us. And even the weapon we could use could be something like a doll, like how we had Lulu from Final Fantasy X, and she used all manner of dolls to be able to use spells. So I can see us being given a manner of dolls to be able to use various spells or have them in the forms of pets to send against our foes, like how we have the Summoner or the Scholar. I mean, it's also possible that it could be as the new limited job, and we could go around collecting our own mammoths and could have an arena where we could do battle with other puppet masters. That would be interesting. Okay, so next up we have one that has been talked about a great deal, and that is the Chemist. Now, the Chemist is another really popular choice, and it was actually the most popular theory for what the next healer job was going to be until we learned of the Sage for Endwalker. It's gotten to a point where a few interviews with Yoshi P, and he asked the interviewers what job they wanted to see in future expansions. And of course, the Chemist was the most popular one. I'm expecting it to be brought up during the 6.0 media circuit before it gets announced, but as for the type of background that the Chemist could have, I have one of 2 theories. Either we could have a Garlemald or a Thavnarian storyline mixed in with future job quests with the Chemist. I mean, I can imagine us unlocking it either in Limsa, where we have a visitor from Thavnar bringing some kinds of secrets of alchemy to Eorzea and had discovered a way to fight with it. Or maybe we could have a former scientist who escaped from Garlemald and is kind of trying to make a living in Udal, thus having worked in the Alchemist Guild and are introduced to them that way. I mean, that could be a fun storyline to do. But as for the Chemist itself as a job, I can see it either as a healer or a DPS job. And instead of having just a manner of weapons, they could have us using all manner of different types of potions. They could have a type of role that Riku had in Final Fantasy X, where she was able to mix all manner of items together to create potions that could either help boost the party or debuff the enemy. Or later on, for example, where we have 10-2, and they actually came out with the Alchemist job. And so they were able to mix all different types of potions and were able to inflict all manner of different types of debuffs on the enemy. As such, I can see it working out though as either a healer or another ranged DPS, and we could throw all manner of potions at the enemy to harm them while also supporting the party. As such, it could become like the next bard job and be more of a supporting role. If it is the next healer, it would be interesting to have a non-magical healer there, and their spells could be animated items that are being mixed together for their cast times. Mixing all manner of potions together in a certain order could determine what type of effect that the potions have, such as being able to use DPS skills and create like poison bombs, Arctic winds, or other classic damage items. They could also take a leaf from 10-2's Alchemist job, and instead of just having us launch all manner of potions at them, they could use some kind of guns to actually fire out the different potions for us. Like maybe some kind of dual pistols, and that would be different from the Machinist, or maybe some kind of launcher that would actually fire the items out. I'm thinking of a system where each different ingredient combo could have different outcomes, like how we have the Ninja Ninjutsu as a base. So 3 ingredients combined for different combos with varying strengths and effects, like maybe regen, shields, buffs, or damage over time debuffs. just depending on what you mix, can create throwable potions with mixed results. Could be an AoE heal, AoE damage, etc. And you can store and mix in certain action bars and use them accordingly, and if you mess up on the combinations, then maybe it could just blow up in our face like how the ninja has the bunny when you mess up the ninjutsu. Alright, moving on to Geomancer. So this is a really fun one. Geomancer is another job that has long since been a requested role, and it was actually one of the 2 forerunners in predictions along with the Chemist before Endwalker was out. Unlike with a lot of other jobs, we actually have proof that the Geomancer is an actual job thanks to the Astrologian questline. It's considered a highly respected profession in the Far East, and we've even joined forces with the Geomancer during the level 60 to 70 job quest for Astrologian. This person used a small wand, but the weapons could very easily be used in the form of like a small bell that we've seen from other games. And it could also be used as either a healer or maybe a magical DPS while using elemental magics. I do worry that it may be a little bit too close to Astrologian, but the Geomancer does have the power to be able to manipulate the weather and even the area around them to a certain degree. So for this, I think that the best way to unlock it would be if we went to Gridania, where we meet a traveler from Doma who is spreading the teachings of geomancy and is interested in the powers of conjuring from the forest. Then we are kind of selected to prove to the people of Gridania that geomancy could be used to help the forest, or maybe something along those lines. It's just a random idea I had. I think the best way that we can really describe how Geomancer works is if we combine White Mage and the Astrologian jobs together, because we do have a lot of classic abilities kind of mixed in with all 3 of those. What I think could be a really interesting move is if they combine it in a way so that we are able to learn the Shugendo, just how Gosetsu learned it. During the Endwalker's ranged role quests, where we have Gosetsu, Hien, Yugiri, and the Warrior of Light battle against the Blasphemy, Gosetsu revealed that though he can't use the katana anymore, he learned during his pilgrimage the benefits of Shugendo and uses a staff in combat to be able to heal and protect. It's a little bit too close to the White Mage job if you ask me, from at least what we saw there, but they could combine a lot of these abilities and make it a very powerful healing class in the form of the Geomancer. And we could have some new variations of attacking, such as maybe a function of terrain, where we can actually change depending on what kind of terrain that we're using. Such as maybe we could have an ability where it's a forest terrain mode, where they could use all manner of earth-based spells to defend, or maybe a desert terrain mode where we could do all manner of fire-based damage. And just depending on what mode that we're currently in can determine how much damage we do, what kind of effects that we have, and maybe how much we can heal. At least that's kind of the idea I had for the Geomancer. So next up we have the Beastmaster. So this has been hinted at a lot in the past and even in-game as well. And basically it's a job where the player is able to capture and use all manner of beasts to attack for them. So for this, I see this as a job as becoming either the first pet-based tanking job, or maybe even just as our new limited job, such as how we can go out and collect Pokemon. This is just the same thing. We go out and collect all sorts of rare beasts, and maybe move them to a new arena like the Mass Carnival. That would be fun in order to be able to raise and train creatures, now that I think of it. In either case, we know that this job has been hinted at for a long time, especially while in Gangos, where we have a lot of ties-ins to some of the lore in the lands of Ishibard. This would be a nice tie-in to places like Corvos or Bogia, and maybe even have a teacher from one of those places to instruct us. So for the storyline, I would say that if we're going to unlock it, the best place would probably be around Udal, and we could have a new arena open up to compete with the Mass Carnival or with the Colosseum. And we could be recruited to train the animals for this new limited job. At least that's kind of the idea that I had. We don't want it to be too similar to the Blue Mage questline after all, but we could be maybe granted the basics for learning this job and maybe only start off with 3 pets that we could train up in battle that maybe don't have to be part of a limited job series. I think it would be a hard job to manage, but you could have the pet skills and help raise your defense and deal damage while also swapping between your pets and yourself to take damage as well. As for the combat for this job, first of all, I think it would be very easy if we are able to use some kind of a whip or maybe dual axes to be able to keep control of the creatures. We could collect them from across the world, command them to attack, synergize with them, and even have them defend us. So I think it would be cool to see, because I can think of several animals in the world that would be neat to train. Like, can you imagine us capturing and training a behemoth? That would be awesome. Next up, we'll be moving on to the Mystic Knight, or even the Rune Knight. And how I love these jobs. I'm kind of a hopeless romantic, and there's just something just very fantastical about the Mystic Knight or even the Rune Knights. This here is a swordsman who has the ability to infuse magic into their swords as they fight. So the Mystic Knight and the Rune Knight, they're both different, but at the same time they have many similar abilities, and the fighting style is very near the same. So they can infuse their weapons, usually with some manner of swords, with magical incantations or runes that enhance their attacks or allow them to deal elemental damage. This here's another classic that has been requested for a long time. Maybe not as much as some of the other jobs that we've already mentioned, but the idea of having a sword class that uses magic is something that fans have been interested in for a long time. For the lore background for this job, I could see something as either from Thavnar or even Ishgard for it. I mean, I can totally see like the Mystic Knights of Thavnar coming to Eorzea for some reason, such as to pass on their teachings or hunting down a dangerous foe, or maybe trying to revive some kind of magics from Ishgard, such as we learned that there were a series of knights that were blessed by dragons and were able to use magic to defend the weak, in a different way than the dragoons could use. I mean, I have so many ideas for this one, I don't even know where to start. But this could lead to our first magical melee job, if not our first magical tank class. The thing is that we already have a lot of jobs that use swords or all manner of blades, so finding one to stand out is going to be a tough call. But that's where magic can come in, and I'm thinking that we could have a pair of dual swords. I'm thinking that they have a manner of spells that they can cast upon their blades to improve their damage, like a shorter duration Q than we have for bard songs, and it just mixes up your rotation depending on the rune that you infuse with the blade. At least that's my best idea for either one of these things. I'm just going to call it the Mystic Knight from here on out. Alright, so our next one is a mage, and it's the Green Mage. Well, we already have Red Mage, White Mage, Blue Mage, and Black Mage, so why not add Green to the list as well? I can't even remember the last time that I've seen a Green Mage, which is not surprising though, because unlike most Final Fantasy jobs, the Green Mage is relatively new. But as its name suggests, this is a job that uses green magics, which are spells that specialize in buffing allies and debuffing enemies, such as being able to use Protect, Blind, and other bar spells. As such, I can see this as a magical range DPS job or a supporting job like how we have with Bard. A big thing for this job is that in the few times that we've seen it in the series so far, they use things like maces or hammers, so this could be the perfect time to really bring out that hammer that Gaia uses. I mean, Gaia was designed by Nomura, and Yoshi P made a joke about how Nomura gave her a hammer without knowing the game has no jobs with hammers, at least at the time. Not to say that I see Gaia becoming a job trainer for us, though that would be awesome, but I can see us using all manner of plant-themed magic for this particular job. I could see us starting off with unlocking this job in Gridania, and maybe have a Viera teacher, because this job was once been known to only be used by the Viera in Final Fantasy Tactics. Perhaps we have a Viera who left home and is hoping to spread the teachings of her spellcraft because it's a dying art or something back home. Or maybe to show her sisters that it's okay to be able to trust outsiders. At least that's an idea. As for the mechanics of this job, like I said, it seems that it would be best suited to a DPS. Maybe switching from spells to melee and using the hammer to rush in and deal heavy damage before casting spells from a further away distance, kind of like how we have with Red Mage. But they could also have a range of spells that could be damage over time spells or maybe some manner of debuffing before they're able to openly attack directly with their hammers when they're close enough. That is certainly a lot of fun to think about, and it would be nice to add another mage to the list while we're at it. Alright, so we got 3 more jobs to talk about. The next one is the Judge. So this is another job that I can totally see them adding into the game almost effortlessly. And I can see us using either the giant hammer or maybe like a pair of twin swords. And I think that Judge would be a really nice addition. Judges I can easily see as like a melee or a tank, carrying around weapons maybe similar to what Gabranth had in Final Fantasy XII. Like we have the large dual blades that you can actually put together like a double blade saber. I mean, that would be neat because we would be actually changing weapons in the middle of combat and switching back and forth. So I'm thinking something similar as to what we have for Red Mage, and where we can have a magical staff to a blade, but here it just goes from 2 blades to just 1 giant blade. And if I had to guess for the story, maybe I could see us unlocking it in, I guess, Gridania, since it's the closest that we have to Garlean-infested territory, or maybe formerly infested at this point. But for the possible lore, I mean, it could connect to Dalmasca, another hint to Final Fantasy XII, and it could be a former member of the Garlean army, or maybe a possible former captive of war who fled judgment himself to Eorzea. Maybe something similar to the Gunbreaker quest, only we have a Garlean who's trying to avoid being captured and killed by enemies of like the far Eastern Alliance or something. As for the battle style itself, I mean, I see it as a job that relies heavily on physical strength and battle, and it could utilize all a person's strength to overpower their foes. So this is a job I could definitely see as one of the heaviest hitters, so they can do the most physical damage. They could have a stance where we switch between dual blade mode and maybe like double blade saber mode, or have some kind of law mechanics mixed in. Maybe some attacks randomly activate a law for certain other attacks, and if you use the right one, it does more damage. So for these last 2, I think I only added them in because I find them just so delightful to think about. But we have the Gambler next, so I'm not sure how seriously this class will be taken in as, but the Gambler is another job that we have a lot of fans asking for, and it's kind of a, I guess the best way to put it is luck of the draw kind of jobs. We've had a handful of Gambler jobs in these series so far, and their attacks always deal with some kind of manner of slots or dice rolls. This could fit as more of a illusionist type of fighting style, which could become like a magical DPS. One of the best instances I can think of is where we unlock the Gambler job in 10.2, where we have the 3 main characters have a range of random attacks that can deal out many different types of abilities to enemies. I think one of the best examples that I can think of when it comes to the Gambler job would probably be from 10.2, where we have the 3 main characters. They have a wide range of abilities that include cards, dice rolls, and it's almost at random what kind of attacks that they have. So they can switch out between more physical to magical to maybe just random abilities. And like the name says, it's a gamble on what kind of abilities that they have. As for the storyline, I mean, since we're already getting new weapons for Endwalker from the Mandervilles, why not add them in by unlocking the job in Udal, only to head to the Gold Saucer to meet with the legendary Gambler, who is able to use some kind of illusions in his battle style. He meets us, and maybe he makes a bet where he could teach us like the art of gambling, and maybe we even have Godbert jump in as like a quest giver from time to time. For mechanics of using a Gambler job, I mean, I could see them have a mix of playing cards or even dice rolls that can dictate how much damage that they do, such as like the higher the roll they throw with the dice, the more damage they could do. Or if they draw the right card, they could maybe use that either to help buff or debuff party members. Maybe it could be like they have effects that could increase someone's physical attack power, but lowers their defensive stats. I mean, I could even see their limit breaks being like a giant slot machine, and performed correctly could do a lot of damage or even heal the party. So it's a gamble, it's impossible to say what could happen, but it would be one fun job to do. And finally, I have one last job kind of mixed in with 2, and that's the Blitzball player / gun mage. So I'll explain why I put these 2 together. I really don't know what to make of this job, or if I'm just putting this in for a good time, but hey, if we're looking for another ranged DPS, this is it. If you need a good example of how Blitzball players could make this work, just take a good look at Waka or Tidus from Final Fantasy X. I mean, I didn't know that we might need a Blitzball job, but suddenly, it's all I could think about. And is it really such a bad thing, especially since Blitzballs are known to have their own weapon category, and they can even use many different types of elemental charges, and sometimes getting struck by them can actually hit you with some kind of massive debuff. I mean, it could be a really nice change, a really nice challenge to have. But at the same time, the gun mage has abilities that work very similar to the Blitzball player, only they use guns with magically enhanced bullets rather than balls. So maybe we have something like dual pistols or the types of guns that we see in 10-2. So it could be able to use some kind of elemental charged bullets, or have bullets that are specific for a certain type of enemy. We already have traces of that with the Gunbreaker, but to really focus on actually firing such weapons would be neat to have. And it would also be a great way to introduce Blitzball if we do have a Blitzball player in the game itself. And maybe have something along the lines of unlocking it in the Gold Saucer, or maybe in Limsa, where we're literally upon the ocean. I mean, I can see that they are just bringing Blitzball to Eorzea. They have a team that's looking to get together. Maybe the Warrior of Light runs into them and finds out that they have a great shot at winning like this brand new tournament if they teach us how to become a Blitzball player. Just something like that. As for any future mechanics, it has to be different from the machinist job if it does go more of a gun mage kind of route. So that's why I think that we should have different types of stance to what different types of elemental damage they can do. Thus infusing either a Blitzball or maybe a gun mage bullets with these different charges and be able to fire from a distance. Either way, I do want to see Blitzball added to this game sooner or later, Square Enix. I mean, I really would love to see that. And that's it for right now. Thank you all so much for watching. Like I said, this list was in no particular order. It's just a list of the most popular jobs that are being requested right now, and perhaps the most likely jobs that we could have for the future expansions. We're still a long way off from 7.0, but I am hoping to see more traces of what we could be getting later on in these future patches. So what do you all think? Do you like my ideas? Do you have any kind of suggestions? Do you have any kind of jobs that you think that should be added to the game that maybe I didn't talk about? If you do, just leave a comment down below. I love to hear it. And I do hope that you enjoyed my discussion on the most popular possible future jobs that we're going to be getting coming to the game. Like I said, this does not cover any original jobs that I'm sure that Yoshi P and the dev team are coming up with right now. These are just the jobs that we've seen already in the series at one point. Anyway, that's going to be it for right now. This is Fantasy Girl signing out, and thank you all and have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye!